All right, let's get right into it. We're looking at a fascinating and, frankly, a really troubling paradox in Ecuador, a country that's world famous for its mind-blowing biodiversity. We have a situation where lands are officially protected, but in reality, they're facing total destruction. So how is this even possible? We're going to unpack that.
So if you just look at the numbers, things seem great. Get this, 19.34%. That's the percentage of Ecuador's entire territory that is, by law, a protected area. That's almost a fifth of the whole country. It's a huge commitment, at least on paper. But as we're about to see, paper doesn't always reflect reality. Because, despite those laws, at least a dozen of these supposedly safe havens are under severe, constant threat. We're talking illegal mining, unregulated fishing, species trafficking, you name it. It's a stark reminder that just slapping a protected label on a map doesn't magically make it safe. And this right here, this is the core question we're digging into. How can a country with such an ambitious conservation plan still be watching its natural treasures disappear at this rate? It's this massive gap between the goal and the result that we really need to understand.
You know, the answer isn't as simple as pointing to one bad guy or one single problem. What we're actually looking at is a complex, tangled web of threats. They all feed off each other, creating this destructive force that's way more powerful than any single issue on its own. So let's start untangling that web.
And what's crucial to understand is that the threat looks different depending on where you are. In the Amazon, for example, the big hitters are deforestation and oil extraction, which are just devastating the water systems. Then you go to the coast and it's a totally different story. Agricultural expansion in new cities are wiping out vital mangroves. Head up into the highlands, and you've got mining and cattle ranching chewing away at the paramos, the very source of their fresh water. And even the legendary Galapagos Islands are in the fight, dealing with invasive species and the pressures of mass tourism.
If you want a perfect, heartbreaking example of this, look no further than Yasuni National Park. I mean, this is one of the most biodiverse places on the entire planet. And it's not fighting one battle. It's fighting a war on multiple fronts at the same time. You've got oil drilling, illegal poaching, and farmland just creeping in from all sides. It's the absolute perfect storm of destruction, right in the heart of a place that should be untouched.
Now, if we zoom out and look at the big picture, one threat really stands out: deforestation. It's hitting a staggering 60% of these protected areas. But here's the real kicker. There's another threat that looms over all of them, making every single problem worse: climate change. It's like a universal amplifier for destruction.
What's scary is that this destruction isn't chaotic or random. Nope, it follows a predictable, terrifying pattern, a downward spiral. And once an ecosystem gets caught in this spiral, it picks up speed and it becomes incredibly difficult to pull it out of the nosedive.
Okay, so here's how it usually goes. It all starts with some kind of initial pressure, right? Say a new mine or a logging operation. That immediately fragments the habitat, cutting off wildlife populations from each other. Pretty soon, you see biodiversity just plummet. That makes the whole ecosystem weaker, and suddenly it's wide open for invasive species to move in. At that point, its natural resilience is shot. It can't bounce back from anything. And the final blow? The social impact. Resources dry up, conflicts ignite, and you get stuck in this negative feedback loop where things just keep getting worse and worse.
So, we've talked about the ecological side of things, but to really get to the bottom of this paradox, we have to look at the human element. Because at its core, this isn't just a fight to save trees and animals, it's a conflict between people with very different needs.
In this question, this is where it gets really complicated. What do you do when the very noble goal of protecting an ecosystem for future generations directly clashes with a local family's need to put food on the table tonight? There are no easy answers here. This is the ethical dilemma at the heart of almost every single one of these conservation battles.
It really boils down to two competing arguments. On one hand, you have the case for conservation, for our shared responsibility to protect biodiversity for the long haul. But on the other hand, you have an equally valid argument. You have to uphold the basic human rights and food security of the local communities who literally depend on those resources to survive.
This kind of clash isn't just a simple disagreement, by the way. It actually has a name: a socio-environmental conflict. And defining it helps us understand just how deep these issues run. It's a formal dispute between different groups, could be communities, corporations, the government, all fighting over how to use, control, or conserve the natural world.
So after all that, you might be thinking it's a hopeless situation. Well, not necessarily, but any real solution is going to require a major shift in how we think about conservation. The experts on the ground are pointing to a clear, even if challenging, path forward. So what does that path actually look like? Well, there are 4 key things that have to happen. First, we need a systemic approach. You can't just play whack-a-mole with symptoms like deforestation. You have to go after the root causes. Second, community participation is non-negotiable. You have to empower local and indigenous communities to be the guardians of their own lands. Third, it's all about balance and justice. Conservation can't be something that puts all the burden on the most vulnerable people. And finally, there's a huge sense of urgency. The time for gradual change is over. We need coordinated action right now.
And I think this quote really just sums it all up perfectly. Real, lasting conservation isn't about building fences to keep people out. It's the exact opposite. It's about making local communities the heroes of the story, the protagonists, not the victims. And that one simple, powerful idea might just be the key to finally solving Ecuador's conservation paradox.